Okay guys, so today I am driving the BMW 3 Series long wheelbase. Those of you, if you're watching from India, in your market, this would be called the 3 Series Grand Limousine. So the history of the 3 Series long wheelbase, of course, comes from China, where they long wheelbase everything, and I know for a fact that they had a long wheelbase 3 Series F30. I think they probably had a long wheelbase E90. They definitely had a long wheelbase E60. All right. So here we have, this is the long wheelbase version of the G20, or officially called G28 in the BMW official chassis designation. So in our market, the 3 Series long wheelbase is only available in one trim, which is the 330 Li M Sport. Now, during the launch of this model, I did question BMW's wisdom. Well, not so much in terms of the engine selection, but why M Sport? This is a long wheelbase car. When you long wheelbase something, sportiness goes out of the picture, right? I argue that for a 3 Series long wheelbase, luxury trim makes more sense. But BMW says that in this price segment, and even right up to 5 Series, where Malaysia is concerned, customers just prefer M Sport trim. So here we have the 330 Li dressed in full M Sport package on the outside. But the good news is the suspension is not M Sport. So that's why when compare this with the 330i, that a lot of people say that it is very firm riding. This 330 Li rides very pliantly. It's almost like what we felt with that of the 320i, and that is a good news, because what it means is that you have the wait, what's this car number? What it means is that you have the higher tune of the 30i engine with 252 horsepower, 258 horsepower, paired with a good, comfortable suspension that is fantastic for day-to-day driving. Now, even though recently I experienced with a customer's car, the 330i M Sport feels a bit more softened than the initial cars that I drove, but still, it is still no getting away. It is a firm ride. This one, however, the 330 Li, however, this is properly plush, properly pleasant. So of course you do sacrifice a bit of the agility of the standard wheelbase model, but in day-to-day driving, in situations where you are likely to use the car more frequently, the 330 Li's dynamic repertoire gives you more qualities that you can enjoy every day. All right, and the other thing is that this B48 engine in its 30i, guys, my god, the way it pulls is out of this world. If you set this car into sport mode, you really are setting it up to be a monster, because the sheer force of its acceleration is utterly brutal. It's utterly brutal. You can drive this car actually in Eco Pro mode, in comfort mode, and it's still faster than most. In fact, that yesterday I experienced this car. Right now I switched it to Eco Pro mode. Right, what it feels now is that it is still, it is still a very potent, a very rapid car. Now, I've driven my fair share of 2-liter turbo cars over the last few years, because that is now the most popular engine configuration. And most of the time, when I drive these 2-liter turbos, I come and say, hey, I fancy, I can pull away from this with my S-Max. But here with this car, no way. Full throttle in this, you know, this car just feels easily like it has 30 or 40 horses more than most, you know, most of the 240, 250 horsepower 2-liter turbos out there. Now you can watch Bobby's Genting run and assess for yourself the dynamic capabilities of this car when you drive it exuberantly. But thus far, in the context of day-to-day driving, what I can tell you is that this is comfortable, all right, more comfortable than the regular G20. It is as quiet as the regular G20, and that's a good thing, because the G20 is just a fantastically quiet car on the move. Now, the other thing is that in the context of city driving, the level of dynamic agility and responsiveness of the chassis, it doesn't feel, you know, and significantly more cumbersome compared to the regular 3 Series. Okay, so from the front, the 330Li really looks no different from the regular 330i M Sport. It has the same LED type headlights as opposed to the laser lights that you get in the M340i in Malaysia. Alright, so same M Sport bumper as well, but it is when you come to the side, alright, you see the extra metal that went to the rear section of the rear of the wheelbase section. Okay, now if you compare this with the previous gen F30, you would notice that BMW has designed the G20 proportionately to with this long wheelbase model in mind. So as a result, it does not look so proportionately awkward if you compare it with a long wheelbase E90 or a long wheelbase F30. Yes, of course, the proportion of the rear door to the front door, it's still a little bit jarring if you look at it straight on from the side, but from most angles, the G28 3 Series long wheelbase actually looks proportionate. Okay, you can see also the wheels that BMW selected for the 330Li is different. Okay, so that's another visual cue that separates the 330Li from the regular 3 Series. And you come to the back, you notice that the rear end also is the same. It's just that the rear bumper, okay, the exhaust is now trapezoidal in design as opposed to circular you see in the 320i or the 330i. Okay, so boot space is the same as the regular 3 Series. So now we shall step into the car, and right here I'm holding the key fob. I'm not doing anything, and as I approach the car has self-unlocking, and as I walk away, auto door lock. So let's get inside and we'll see the main difference, which is the rear section of the cabin. So now the funny thing is this, the G20 is the most spacious 3 Series ever. It is the one 3 Series that actually, you sit at the back, right, it feels like a 5 Series. Previous models of the 3 Series, right up to the F30, you go sit at the back, it feels cramped inside. But the G20 was not. Okay, now one thing they did delete from the long wheelbase model here is that you don't get folding rear seats. But still, nevertheless, let's step inside. Now, wow, fantastic headroom, legroom, I have to say. This little trim piece here adds a dose of class. I thought this is like a tray or something like that, but it's not. It's just a little decorative trim piece here. And you can see here the this is a plastic piece with for the seat pocket. All right, and I like this color. All right, this interior color, upholstery color is very, very nice. And you've got rear aircon blowers here. Okay, rear zone climate control, 2 USB-C ports, armrest with foldable cup holders. The mechanism feels solid. All right, isofix mounts down here. Okay, so it's hinge type, and the isofix mount itself is quite easy to locate. I'm 170 centimeters tall, got about 4 fingers of headroom above me. So, well, overall head space is good, leg space is good. This rear accommodation obviously designed with chauffeur driving in mind. So up here, there's a panoramic sunroof as well, full-length panoramic sunroof, very nice. And we shall get to the front. Okay, now this is the familiar cabin from the G20. We will not explore too much, we will not spend too much time exploring the design, which we have already done that in the regular 3 Series cabin, but we should just run through the features available here. Okay, so now there's no wireless charging available. Okay, there's a 12-volt socket USB port. So here are the drive mode selections. Now let me just take you through the screen and highlight a few things. So now we go to settings. Okay, and sorry, we go to settings, we go to driving mode, we set sport individual. Now you can see from this menu, you can adjust steering, you can adjust engine response, you can adjust transmission response, but you cannot adjust suspension, which means the 330 Li here runs on passive suspension. And from our early driving experience earlier, I have to say this is a much better considered passive suspension setup compared to the 330i M Sport. In fact, if you give me a choice, I would transplant this suspension over to the regular 330i. Okay, now you can also press this button here. You can configure the ADAS system. So you have front collision warning, you have lane departure warning, you have lane change warning, but there is no adaptive cruise control, which you can see here from the cruise control cluster here. You don't get adaptive cruise control. The instrument cluster, we have said much about this instrument cluster. This was introduced, I think, in the G20, and it's still here, it's still going strong. BMW obviously, this is the future of BMW cluster direction. You know, get used to it. All right, so here you are, guys. This is the G28 3 Series cabin. Oh, and you can see there's a lock and unlock button on the passenger side as well, so that's a good touch. I have to say, overall, right, it does not feel as expensive somehow compared to the 330i. I think this part here, this panel here, okay, the use of matte plastics here and also here make this feel not as expensive a cabin that it could be. All right, but yeah, otherwise overall fit and finish is solid. This particular car's example of a brown interior is a great it's a great color choice. So overall, I have to say some minor quibbles here in the interior, but that aside, nothing. And of course the still can't quite get used to this digital cluster, but otherwise nothing else to fault inside here. So the conclusion with the 330 Li here is that I'm not sure what I can conclude with this car, because now, to be honest, I don't see the point of a long wheelbase 3 Series. I really don't. But fact of the matter is, as I drive this car, as I explore it, there is also nothing that I can find fault with it. All right, I mean, I would prefer the proportions of the standard wheelbase car, but yeah, to drive with this car is great. In fact, I would much prefer if I can somehow transplant the pliant suspension of this car into the regular 330i, all right, together with this B48 engine, and yeah, and what you will have is a fantastic, you know, daily car.